This right here is probably the industry standard in terms of action cameras. This is my GoPro. It is a Hero 3 Plus, and it's a great camera. I've been able to use it for a couple of years now. It's been very functional, and I haven't had any major issues with it except for when I first bought it. There was an issue where it would keep constantly overheating. You can see the battery back is missing. I have it somewhere, but yeah. Anyway, so this is my GoPro Hero 3. This is the industry standard for action cameras. It's probably the most popular and has the most accessories for it. Now, since I've owned this camera for about 2 years now, I've managed to amass a small collection of accessories for it, if you will. Now, these accessories are not cheap, but they are very useful. It even fits perfectly onto my drone. I'm in the market to buy a new action camera. I was looking very seriously at the new GoPro line. The issue is my budget. They're slightly out of it, and I want to be able to place these cameras in slightly risky positions in which I won't feel too worried about losing them. That's a little hard to do when you have a $500 camera that you're scared to break. So I tried to think about my other options. I was thinking about maybe getting a Sony or JVC or some other kind of action camera, but then I would lose the functionality of the rest of my accessories. So what I needed was a camera with a decent range of motion, cheap enough that I won't miss it when it gets damaged, and with a similar form factor to the GoPros. When you think about all of that, it becomes somewhat difficult to find a camera that fits that specific niche. Again, the main thing is the form factor of the GoPro, but then I started looking around Amazon and I started to notice a lot of knockoff GoPros, if you will. These aren't exactly GoPros, but they look close enough to them, and some of them had pretty decent specs. Others did not. So I decided to do a little bit of an experiment. I bought one, the cheapest one I can find, at $24.99. and a more moderately priced one at $50. Now, neither one of these is anywhere near the cost of a new GoPro, and for that I felt a little more relaxed about possibly damaging them. As you can tell, they're almost exactly the same in terms of their form factor to the GoPro Hero 3 and other GoPros, and some of them promise pretty good performance. And it is very tempting when you see these cameras at their cheap prices to buy them, and I did. This video is going to be a bit of a review and unboxing, a comparison, if you will, of these cameras with the GoPro. So sit back, relax, and let's see which ones are totally crap. Start with the cheaper one. This is the one that I got for about $30. And right away, the packaging actually feels a lot like one of those toys you get from those cheap 99-cent stores or dollar stores. The plastic is super brittle. Everything feels really lightweight. In fact, it's pretty hard to believe that this is an action camera, not just a child's toy. You can hear the way the plastic crinkles. This comes out. Let's go read through the specs real quick. 1080p waterproof video, 1920 by 1080p pixels at 15 frames per second. 1280 by 720 at 30 frames per second. So basically at 1080p you're not really going to be using this camera at all. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to use a 15 frames per second camera, so I guess 720 is not too bad. Super wide angle 140-degree lens, waterproof up to 30 meters, 1.5/2 inch LCD screen. Apparently they don't know which one is in the box. Multi-language, storage on a micro SD card not included. Battery is a 1050 milliamp hour battery that lasts 1.5 hours. Input output is micro USB, and the dimensions are 59.3 millimeters by 24.6 millimeters by 41.1 millimeters. So, to be honest, nothing impressive. I think for $30 I really didn't know what else to hope for. Now here's the camera itself. Nice bright blue. Still extremely lightweight. Got some more mounts. Handlebar mount. Actually, this handlebar mount feels pretty nice. Got a power brick, a tripod mount, some kind of band assembly, USB charger, what appears to be another tripod mount, and a regular everyday piece. Now let me move the accessories out the way and we'll focus on the camera itself for a minute. Now right away you can feel, just like I said, just how lightweight it is. It says 1080p, but again, no one's going to be using 1080p at 15 frames per second. So more realistically, this is a 720p camera. and even that is only capable at 30 frames per second. Now the camera itself doesn't feel too bad. It does feel quite light and quite flimsy almost, but it feels like it might be able to do something. One thing I'd like to just mention real quick is just how scratched up this lens cover is already. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you can see a lot of scratching and etching, and this appears to be very easy to very easy to scratch. I don't know if this has a screen protector on it or a little rubber thing. It does feel slightly rubberized, but maybe it is. Let's see. I think it does have a screen protector on it. Okay, that's not too bad then. Yep, there it is. That's good. Protects us from scratches and things. So that was going to be my major complaint, was the scratches, but seeing as that was nothing more than a little plastic piece, that's no big deal. As for the camera itself, I'm pretty impressed to see that it actually has an LCD screen on it. It's one of those things that you read on the Amazon listing and you're never actually quite sure of. Action camera, be unique. It literally stole the GoPro logo right then and there. The video itself doesn't seem too bad. I'm going to be taking these cameras out and testing them out later in the day, or whenever I can get a mount. So far, I really like this LCD screen. I mean, it's not the most amazing thing in the world, but it's functionable. OK button. The little chimes they make are pretty funny too. Let me take this little lens protector off. See, the camera actually already came with a scrape on it right there. I don't know if that's being picked up in this camera right here. Right there, a little scrape. But other than that, so far it looks okay. Again, this is definitely not a camera I would use for like my main thing. It's probably like a B-roll camera. But it's pretty good for 30 bucks. Or however much I paid for it. I can't even remember. I think it's been a week since these came in. I'm just now looking at them. This is definitely a camera that I would put in a location that is more risky, that I wouldn't be too worried about losing. It's very nice for that aspect of it. I hope the video is any good. And another thing about that 720p, to be absolutely honest, most of the videos I upload are in 720p. I edit them in 720p. It's just easier for me. My computer is not the most powerful thing in the world. So to have 720p over 1080p doesn't really make much difference to me. I don't think anyone's really going to notice either. Okay, I'll put this one aside. Now this one right here is the MGcool Explorer Pro, and right away this package feels so much more substantial. I mean, it's actually a very nice setup. So let's see how it looks inside. Oh, let's see if I can get it open. Yep, there's the camera. It looks very similar to the early GoPro Hero 3s, and I must admit the packaging is quite nice. I just come out this way? Yep, it comes out this way. Wow. Again, some light scratching on the case, but for 50 bucks it's not too bad, or 60 bucks. This feels so much heavier and so much more sturdy than the other one. It's very well secured into its little bracketing. This actually feels the closest to the regular GoPro. Looks like the battery sizes are all similar. Has a few more ports. It has this really nice rubber texturized feel to it, and I really like it. Let's see how this thing works. MGcool. This one appears to be set right now at 4K at 30 frames per second. The fact that it can do 4K at 30 frames per second is really quite amazing. Will I ever record at that length? I don't know. It appears to also have a Wi-Fi icon on it and a TF card thing. Battery's about halfway charged. Also, I really want to check this out more. I mean, comparing it to this one, it feels so much flimsier. This feels like a little toy, and this feels like an actual camera. And their form factor is almost exactly the same. Actually, I think they can be swapped in and out of different cases. All the ports are the same, batteries are the same. It's really quite familiar to the GoPro Hero 4, I think. Okay, so let me get these two out of the way, and we can continue looking through the packaging of this one. So here's the bottom of it. Let's see how this thing comes apart. For a $50 camera, this is a very nice box. And it's so fancy, and actually, honestly, I would say this box is much nicer than the actual GoPro camera box. Again, very similar to the other one. This one does have an extra battery in it. Another skull type case or holder. Oop, there, that went to the floor. Another tripod looking mount. Another one of those sticky back ones. I might stick one of these to the dashboard of my car since I have so many of them now. USB cable. Another very similar to the GoPro mount. Handlebar mount. I don't know what this is actually. It appears to be a hat clip. Much nicer than the hat clip I have right now. Yep, it's apparently the same size lithium-ion battery. They should be interchangeable for these cameras. Specs: it does 4K at 30 frames per second, 2.7K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at either 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, 720p at 120 frames per second or 60 frames per second. Its image format uses an MP4 file, whereas the other blue camera uses an AVI file, and it can support up to a 64GB micro SD card. It's got a few different modes. It's got like a burst mode, self-timer, and all that. And it has a USB port, and it also has an HDMI port. The other camera does not have an HDMI port. Now back to my beat up little GoPro. Now this camera I've had for a couple years, and I've had plenty of good service with it. It's done quite amazing things. It's been run over by a car. If you want to see that video, click on the information card over there. I got the battery cover off of it. Now I just want to compare these in dimensions to the Hero 3 Plus, which is a much older GoPro than what's out now. And oddly enough, the Hero 3 Plus is still skinnier, and it's midweight, heaviest, midweight, and lightest. To the point where this feels cheap. And you can see this one, the GoPro Hero 3 has a much thicker lens. This lens is actually smaller. So, in order of lens thickness, there's that. And in order of price. This one was, I believe, almost $400 when I bought it new. This one is $60, and this one's about 30, maybe $40. I can't remember the exact pricing. Actually, to be honest, I'm not too displeased. Like, if I was, say, going down some weird highway and I wanted to mount a camera on my lower fairing, or near my chain guard, or on my undertail of my motorcycle, this is the camera I would use for that. This one having better 4K, I would probably use one of these two for my main forward shots, and one of them to mount on my helmet. Most likely the GoPro, because it has the external microphone attachment already. And this would be my front-facing camera that's pretty solid, stable, or the one that records facing me. Okay, so that's about it for the unboxing section. Next up is going to be the review section. I'm going to take all three of these out, test them out, see how they do. Actually, I'm probably going to take them out when the sun goes down, because right now it's almost 110 degrees, 120. There's between my GoPro Hero 3 Plus and these two cameras. But for some reason my GoPro decided to be a little bit more temperamental than normal, and it's not turning on. I've switched out batteries, I've taken the SD card out, put it back in. I've tried to install new software. For some reason it's just not turning on. So this comparison is just going to be between these two cameras. Now, I'm going to be running the black one at 4K at 30 frames per second. I'm going to be running the blue one at 720p at 30 frames per second. The reason I'm doing that is at 1080p, the blue one, it only goes up to 15 frames per second. And the black one goes up to 4K at 30 frames per second. I want to try and use the maximum resolution possible while still maintaining 30 frames per second, because I don't feel like someone is realistically going to use 15 frames per second unless they're shooting a time lapse or something of that nature. And I feel like 720 is decently enough to be able to do your things. So in about, yeah, I've already put the little sticky back thing onto my sister's Ford Explorer. which I'm about to go take it to get it washed. And I'm just going to test out the footage on the way there. As you saw from the drive footage, there is a significant difference between the two cameras in terms of their overall picture quality, obviously. This is 720p, that's 4K. But as far as cameras go, and especially when considering the price, I'd say they're both pretty good. I mean, if you're just getting into cameras or recording stuff and you just want a cheap waterproof action camera and you don't want to spend $50 or $400, this little $25 blue one's pretty good. The video quality is pretty decent, and honestly, it's pretty good. That's all I can really say about it. The colors are okay. It's not the sharpest image, and there is that annoying little date stamp at the bottom, which I can't figure out how to get rid of. But as far as the camera goes, I would get it if I was to buy it. Like if I was a middle schooler just starting out, and I just want to start uploading videos to YouTube, and I had some allowance saved up, this is the camera I would get. It's cheap, but saying that, well, if I had $60 and I was choosing between which camera to go for, the $25 one or $60 one, I would go with the $60 one. Simply because it just feels like a nicer camera. It is a better camera in every metric. I would say both of these cameras are definitely worth the money, and I'm actually pretty happy I bought both of them. I'm pretty sure I'll find a use for them very easily. Amazon links will be in the description below. I definitely recommend going around and doing a little bit more research, seeing which camera you like more, and deciding on your own whether paying that extra money is worth it to get the better camera. Those are choices only you can make. Okay, so that's about it. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. There are a lot more boxes coming in the mail and a lot more car parts to fix. And I am still working on the Volt. I'm still waiting for the wheel to come in the mail. That should be here hopefully this week or next week. And that's about it. Do whatever you guys do on the internet. Specs. It does 4K at 30 frames per second, 2.7K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at either 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, 720p at